Hello, welcome to everybody, to everyone attending this interesting webinar. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We have people connecting from around the world. Even our speakers and panelists are coming from America, Europe, Asia. So it's fine to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. I would like to introduce today and thank our speakers for this presentation of the study in retail innovation and what it's the last trends this year and what has happened and what will happen after this terrible pandemic crisis. And I would like to thank and introduce first, let me say ladies first. And Claire Calmejane that is today here. Hi, Claire. She's Chief Innovation Officer of Société Générale in France, so Europe. She has a lot of experience in banking, innovation, and transforming institutions, especially financial, in their technology and digital. And on the other side, we have Olga Ceja, thank you, here from Mexico, from Banorte. She's the Director of Innovation and Digital Channels and also has a large experience in different banks and especially in digital and innovation. And I also like to welcome and thank Arun Krishnan. He is the Vice President and Global Head of Engineering of Infosys Finacle. And thank a lot for the support that you are giving and co-branding with Efma, this nice study done with Jim Marous. Arun has also a lot of experience, more than 25 years. He's based in Asia. And so there is good evening, Arun, maybe? Yes, and a lot of experience in the leadership roles in product engineering, pre-sales, service delivery, program management, and especially innovation. And at last but not least, our favorite influencer, Jim Marous. He is connecting from the USA. I think that Jim does not need the presentation. You know, he's a very well-known influencer. He is the owner and publisher of Digital Banking Report, co-publisher of the financial brand in USA, and is our guru in innovation in retail. So I propose you all to begin because the audience is impatient and wanting to learn more from your side. And Jim and Arun, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. First of all, I hope you and your families remain safe from the current public health challenge of our times. At a time when we're all thinking about a post-pandemic world, it's my privilege to present the Infosys Finacle Efma Innovation in Retail Banking Report 2020, researched and prepared by Jim Marous. This is the 12th year in which Infosys Finacle has been carrying out this research work with Efma. And we've had the great pleasure of working with Jim over the last 3 years. Jim, of course, will be discussing his research shortly. We're also privileged to hear from two leaders at the forefront of innovation. So thank you, Claire, and thank you, Olga, for being with us here today. We know you're extremely busy, and you're taking the time is really appreciated. I will take a few moments of your time to indicate why this particular report might be helpful and relevant to you. First, the insights are from global bankers a few months into the pandemic. So at the time that they responded, they had adjusted to the immediate demands of the pandemic and were plotting their courses forward. Second, the report captures the behavior and vision not just of large banks that we all know, but of those players who might not be widely known. And third, the report reflects ground realities of the rapid shift in the fundamental operating model for banking. Our industry is dealing with many challenges. The most connected and demanding consumer in history, whose expectations have been reset by players like Uber, Amazon, Alibaba, and who, by the way, we can expect to become even more active in the banking space. The fastest adoption of new players, challenger banks, new touch points, new service models, is breathtaking. And the most consumer-friendly regulatory environment, including open banking initiatives such as PSD2, and much more. So the confluence of these factors will only accelerate the forces of disintermediation and commoditization. Now, as a technology partner, it's an exciting time for us at Infosys Finacle to be working with clients to reposition their businesses for the future. Technology options have expanded rapidly in the last couple of years to make possible a number of new paths. So no surprise that the study participants in this research rated cloud, APIs, and AI as the most impactful. And you know what's interesting? When we double click, we see a more savvy approach to these topics than we have ever seen in the past. For example, 37% said that business agility and not cost savings was the primary reason for adoption of cloud. And that represents a maturity that we're seeing throughout the respondents. Now, in our own conversations with clients, we see them clearly looking beyond the current crisis towards a transformational response to capture opportunities that will be presented in 2021 and beyond. Our clients specifically are pushing us to a more coherent suite of products that allows their business to focus on becoming banking platforms. Now, clearly, there are many things that seem to be swirling and changing around us all the time. But from a technology standpoint, we see that there is success whenever there is consistency in digital. For example, extreme automation is here to stay. Virtualization, clearly here to stay. And so is personalization. So if there's one thought for your consideration in this session, it would be this. Identify the invariance of what digital means in your context so that you can bring consistent focus to them within your strategies. Thank you for making us part of your day. We hope that these insights from the research and this session will be useful in helping you advance the right mix of digital invariants for your respective organizations. It's my privilege now to hand you off to Jim Marous, the author of the report. Take it away, Jim.
Thank you very much, Arun. I think what's exciting about this report is, as Arun mentioned, I've been working with Efma and Infosys now for 3 years on this report. And this was probably not only the most important report, but certainly the most insightful. And mainly because the research was done in a post, what I'm going to call post-pandemic world. It included close to 700 financial institutions globally that participated in the survey to find out where is innovation and digital transformation heading in a post-pandemic world. As I mentioned, it does reflect the world in a post-pandemic world, both in innovation and digital transformation. In the report, which everyone will receive, it's at no cost thanks to the participation and the sponsorship of Infosys, is that there'll be comparative insights to past studies. So not only do you get to see where we are today, but you get to see how it compares to where we were last year. And there's some amazing insights in that area. It also includes interviews with innovation leaders. As part of the Banking Transformed podcast, we took excerpts out of different interviews we did with innovation leaders to say, what makes a difference? What makes an innovation leader? What's the difference in the organization? Where do you put your priorities? What do you do next? It is certainly the most comprehensive analysis of retail banking innovation and digital transformation in the world today. So what questions did we want to ask? First and foremost, we wanted to find out what is the level of innovation maturity and how has it changed as a result of COVID? Secondly, what's the status of digital transformation within financial institutions? We all are talking about innovation, digital transformation, but how well are we doing? What are the keys to a successful digital transformation process? And what technologies need to be prioritized within this digital transformation? And what makes an innovation and digital transformation leader and what are the most competitive threats, most significant competitive threats? When you look at these in context, and this report is 89 pages, so there's no lack of data in there, but when you look at them in context, it gives financial institutions the ability to really look at where do you sit in the realm of everything that's going on. So our findings were interesting. I'm just going to give a synopsis here. First of all, despite advances in innovation and digital transformation, fewer organizations consider themselves leaders in those areas. So what we actually saw, while the numbers were really small, we asked, are you a leader? Are you a fast follower? Are you a mainstream player? Are you a laggard? We actually saw a shift away from where we thought it would be. We thought with all the things that came about because of COVID, everybody would put themselves on a higher level because they've done a lot. The organizations have really responded well. What happened though, is the marketplace changed even faster. Consumers, small businesses, corporations, and all the things that the consumers engage with have actually made it so the tide has risen faster than we were able to swim. We saw this both on the innovation and digital transformation side. We also saw it with regards to the way data and analytics is used to build better experiences. What we saw also with digital transformation efforts continue to lag other organizations, mostly because of the lack of advanced data, strategies, and innovation culture. So really, if you don't have those put in place, if you don't have the culture, if you don't have the ability to use data and analytics to move the experience forward, not just to make great reports, you're not going to be as successful. We found that digital transformation success is driven by technology, but really the foundation is leadership and culture. And this came out in the interviews we did for Banking Transform. We found that every organization that is considered a leader in innovation, digital transformation, those that are really making headways and really moving market share are those organizations that had the leadership and culture in place to make it so that innovation, risk-taking, digital transformation, making a better customer experience was part of the overall culture. A big difference and probably the hardest change. We saw also that most organizations failed to build digital strategies from the inside out. Now, what do I mean by that? We saw a lot of organizations that once branches were shut down, turned on digital apps to make it so you could apply for a loan or open a new account without a branch. Great move. Something we've been talking about as financial brand and digital banking report for years. But overall, what happened was that we saw that if you didn't do this, if you did this, we saw a lot of organizations didn't move the needle very far. In fact, we saw that mobile and web applications and new account openings were between 5 to 10 minutes. So certainly not a good digital experience. So within the innovation maturity realm, as I mentioned, we saw that the pioneers actually were less than last year. Fast followers were less. And actually, we've talked about this on another event, that fast follower category isn't really a great place to be. It's more like a mainstream player. A fast follower usually is not fast, but it's definitely a follower. And consumers today have been brought to the mainframe as far as knowing what they expect. The COVID crisis really created a digital consumer far different than there was before the COVID crisis. For instance, the biggest gap between where people were and where they are today from the standpoint of improvement in digital maturity is the eldest of demographic groups. They previously had not done much in digital banking. Now they know how to do everything in digital banking. They know how to use their phone to do everything they used to go in the branch for. In addition, these same people have become mature in ordering groceries by digital, participating in Zoom conversations such as this. And as a result, their expectations with what you will do, how fast you'll move forward, how you'll innovate. And innovation does not have to be brand new products, but what it probably has to do is adapting what people are becoming accustomed to, what they may be getting from their fintech partners. So where do we get within the whole realm of digital transformation. On the next slide, you'll see digital transformation really has 7 essential components for success. They range from being a data and analytics leader to enhancing consumer experiences, foster innovation, leverage modern technologies, build a good back office ecosystem, and reskilling your workforce. Now, all this takes an alignment of leadership and culture to build a good digital future. Are there one of these more important than the other? I think it's different for every organization. What you really need to do is figure out where the gaps are. I personally believe that unless you have the leadership and culture first, and secondly, are starting to use data analytics to build better experiences as opposed to just giving you better information internally, all the rest are moot. There's no reason to reskill the workforce on how to use digital and analytics if you don't do that. Don't spend modern technology on modern technologies assuming that the whole organization is going to move forward. And being digital in the future is not about digital apps. It's really about digital experiences. But when we look at this, we have to realize that what we used to think was simply being able to do things digitally, now it's doing them well, having a good user experience, having a good customer experience. On the next slide, you'll see that when we talk about the different stages of digital transformation, only 17% thought they were deployed at scale. And of that, over half of those organizations were not really getting the results they desired. So it wasn't delivering at scale. We see that when you're talking about partially deployed, we have another 62%. So it falls in line with what I said before with innovation. We're falling behind. And these are not options anymore. These are the bottom line basics of what you need to do to move forward, because it not only makes a better customer experience, but it brings better efficiencies to the organization. And we all know that next year is not going to be an easy year financially. Digital transformation innovation can't be left on the wayside, hoping to wait until you can invest later, because the marketplace has not stopped moving. In fact, change has never happened faster than it is today, and it will never happen this slowly again. So if you're hoping to wait for the next train, those trains are running faster and faster, and it's going to be harder and harder to keep up. So remember, as we do this, we have to really look at this as we look into the realm. I want to bring everyone else back into the conversation, Claire and Olga and Sylvia, to talk a little bit about where we are and what our research means. So if you want to turn your cameras back on now and unmute your speakers, as I said, we're going to keep this slide up so you know who's speaking. I'm going to move around the room a little bit, the virtual room, to talk about where we are. But let me start with Claire. Claire, you know, you've been in this world for a long time in the innovation world. You were at Lloyd's, you're at Société Générale now. What sets an innovation or digital transformation leader apart from the rest of the marketplace? What really sets an organization apart? What do you think are the keys?
Yeah, I think for me there is 3 main components. So you know, we often say it, but you know, this transformation is not about a technological revolution. It's actually a people revolution. So the first one and the most important one, it starts with and it ends with the people. You know, in your organization. It's how do you bring them in the journey of the growth mindset to embrace new ways. And to some extent, the world around us is changing and there is no way to stand still. And so we need to be able to evolve. And it's the most difficult thing to do, because you have to bring people in this journey to get them out of the fear zone or to be defensive in the revenues they have today and their current business model, to really embrace and adapt these new jobs. And as you have mentioned, Jim, I've done that for more than a decade, you know, building very diverse team across the world. And, you know, I do believe one of the key of the success is diversity, you know, having different point of view and in all sense, not just gender, but also where do they come from. So my team, you know, in Société Générale today, there is 2 people which are very senior from the organization, coming from finance and from the retail department, and people that are coming from outside outside, which are much more disruptive, very different. And I'm myself someone which is coming from the outside and quite disruptive. So it's really about how do you bring people in this agile growth mindset journey? Where do you start? So one of the key components. The second one is really around, okay, you know, your innovation strategy and your digital strategy is as good as your strategy. So, you know, the reality is there is no side way that you have something digital. I always laugh about, you know, like people say, oh, why is the innovation is not a separate division? I'm just like, it cannot work, you know, like maybe it worked for a little while, but the reality, and that's why, you know, in Société, I cover both of the aspects of accelerating the transformation of the business as it is today, working with the CEOs, working with the division, because I'm not doing it instead of, I'm doing it with them. Like a support, like bringing some outside perspective, and also having the whole portfolio of creating new business, which sometimes, yes, could even eat the business, the traditional core business. But it's an equation where the two need to work together, and the two need to really goes hand by hand, because the reality is, you know, we are in a business in banking where digital is commoditizing part of the revenue base, and the reality is you have to manage very well this transition towards new areas of revenue. Very interested, James, and Arun, that you mentioned some around what's waiting for us tomorrow, which is probably not just only doing the job we have been doing so far, which is, you know, managing and protecting the savings of the customer and moving money around. I think, you know, digital introduce new opportunities for banks. You know, your innovation strategy is as good as your digital strategy. That's why it's so important. You know, my role report directly to the CEO and the head of strategy. I work very closely with her, but at the end, it's a triangle with the business that need to work all together. And last but not least, it's really what you mentioned around the clients and the customer. The reality is a lot of times this transformation starts in IT, and yes, you need a very IT robust base, you need to move your cloud and etc. But at the end of the day, we need to be very outcome driven. And I love this quote of an Oliver Wyman report, which was a CFO saying, I think 50% of my digital transformation went to the waste, but I don't know which parts, which is the good part or the bad part of the 50%. You know, it's like what we can observe is when your transformation is well done, even innovation, it needs to be outcome based, and that's big leap and big change in organizations.
Well, it's interesting because it really is about the definition of both those things too. Digital, what is digital transformation? What is digital? What is innovation? But you bring up a very good point that it's not about a check mark. It's not about saying, okay, we did that, or we have an innovation lab. That it's really about an overall mindset from top to bottom, and that's really a change over the last 4 or 5 years. Where, you know, when you're at Lloyd's, innovation was part of what you did. It wasn't an overall mindset. Well, now even at Lloyd's, it really has to be an overall mindset. Olga, from your perspective, what do you see is the difference between an innovation leader and a follower? Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah.
I think in innovation, you can't give up, right? So I think it's something that you should try. You will fail, of course, but the way now you see it as innovation, it's how to improve that, right? After the results of all this testing. Be agile, because you need to be agile, so you can be failing fast to improve the performance very, very quickly. So I think one of the things in innovation, it's not only focusing, as you mentioned, on digital transformation and technology, because that's not really the core of the innovation. I think you need to start also looking at the business model. So because if you go with the same business model in a great new technology, it doesn't matter it's AI, it doesn't matter it's blockchain, it doesn't matter what new technology, if you really don't think on disrupting the business models, you won't get innovation in 100%. That's my perspective, right? So
yeah, I think you know, those are two key points. Number one, don't give up. I mean, you look at the innovation leaders in any industry, they're continually doing things. And as you said, they're not afraid of failure. I mean, if I had bought, and I almost bought everyone, but if I had bought every one of the Amazon voice devices through time, I'd have 5, 10, 15 different devices, many of which had a very short lifespan. Their phone had no lifespan. I mean, they put an Amazon phone out there that had no life, but you know what? They're willing to put it out there and take it back. When I visited WeBank in China, they said, you know, we test with different markets every new idea. And if it doesn't work, we just take it off the market. We haven't put it out there for everybody, but we're testing it in real life situations as opposed to a lab. Arun, from your perspective, and you work on sometimes I'm going to say the other side of the desk, when you're visiting organizations, and we talked about this once before, that you sometimes can feel it. You can just feel it from the people involved in the organization. What do you see when you're visiting organizations? How do you know if this organization is really going to move forward, or this can be more just talk?
Awesome question. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the opportunity. As you mentioned, you know, our perspective is as a technology vendor. So, you know, clearly it's a piece of the puzzle. So, you know, it's very important for us to accelerate and support the leader in their vision. I would say the most interesting idea that I've seen is this idea of being anti-fragile. And any organization that is actually aiming to, how do I say, be innovative and not do innovation is the difference. That is the big thing we look for. We look for 3 characteristics, I would say. Number 1, is there an idea of a 10x culture? So anything we do we start from an outcome that is 10x? And then I'm not saying we get 10x outcomes every time. It's a 10x culture. It's a mindset, right? To sort of disintermediate every impedance that you see along the way. That's the first thing we look for. The second is the idea of and versus or. You know, if we hear the language carefully, somebody says, is it this or that? You know, may not be as innovative. We should be willing to try and. Sometimes that's the answer. And the third, I think, is what Olga mentioned, the idea of failing fast, tinkering constantly. And we look for that. I think when we see those elements in place, we're able to augment that with tools and ideas that really can lift the organization up. And there was one more point that Olga mentioned, that was about constancy. We look for leaders who are constant, who are consistent. They're not chasing the flavor of the month.
Okay, so Arun, I'm going to do a follow-up question there. Is innovation scalable? And I don't mean scalable up, but can small organizations be innovation and digital transformation leaders, or is it just too costly?
You know, it's interesting. I think each organization has the opportunity to innovate. Again, that comes down to the 10x culture. The opportunities and strengths that a small organization has, you know, would be the envy of a large organization in many cases. The speed with which they're able to move, the cohesion of the team, and conversely, the reach of a really large organization, you know, like Claire's organization, Société, the reach is just a tremendous advantage, right? So I think it's all a question of contextualizing the innovation strategy to where each person is. I mean, in some sense, that's what innovation is, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting because in the research we did together, we found that innovation leaders were at every asset scale, you know, and that's self-evaluation. And we found that in this evaluation, people are not bragging because nobody knows who they are that say that. They're actually putting themselves lower because they're worried about the outcome. But I think what we found was, what is really nice is the supplier marketplace, the solution provider marketplace right now has never been greater. It's never been more robust. There's never been more organizations that say, I can work with any back office system you have. And if you have 4 of them, I can work with them to make it happen through, as we call chicken wire and band-aids, where you're not really, it may look great on the outside, but it may not be built well on the inside. And I think that gets back to what Olga said, which is, does an organization really build it where they're building from the inside out? Are they changing their business model for digital, or are they simply trying to do it? And you know, scaling is one of those big things that we found that, you know, there's some big organizations that suck at innovation, and they're not going very far down digital transformation. On the other hand, I can give you probably more organizations that are doing exciting things on the innovation digital transformation scale, possibly because it's easier to change culture and leadership mindset at a smaller organization than trying to change in a large organization. I won't go through the entire conversation Claire and I had one time, but I said, how easy is it to change innovation culture and to put innovation in at Lloyd's? And she wasn't critical of Lloyd's. She just said, it's tough because you're dealing with a lot of people that have been there for a long time. Olga, at your organization, how did innovation or digital transformation get impacted by COVID? Did it take mindset away from what you had to accomplish, or did it double down?
No, I think in my case, we were already speeding up with many things, and with COVID, it really just helped us accelerate some things that were maybe not 100% prioritized. So with this COVID thing, it helped us accelerate things. For example, we were doing things in branches, but not as fast as our digital channels. So we need to speed up things to be able to transform the way you attend in branches, trying to help the people going there, because we were so focused on our digital channels that we think we are fine, right? But people still want to go to branch here, some cases. So we were also trying to accelerate those things. It helped us. What also happened is that many people were fearing to be doing digital transactions. So with this COVID thing, it really accelerates the adoption of our digital channels, of our chatbots, that we really receive lots of transactions now since I think in the beginning of May, where it really was the peak here. So it was accelerating in a very good manner our digital transformation and innovation things.
Claire, from your perspective at Société Générale, how did COVID change what was going on at your organization with regard to both innovation and digital transformation?
I mean, it's much like Olga, the reality is we have 7 retail banks across the world for 30 million customers that range from France, Romania, Czech Republic, Africa, Russia. And honestly, they were already well in train in this digital transformation, and we are already, measuring the outcome for the clients and embracing this digital experience across the world. So it's changed a little bit. It proves some point maybe in AI, chatbot usage, how we can more be modular around telephony. I think it definitely pushed the fact that digital is not a channel anymore, and it's really about a primary point of contact. So just to give you an idea, but in our 30 million customer, we have more than 50 million which are digital active, which means that they connect more than once a month to the transaction. 57% penetration in France. We have they connect about 34 times, in the month in the online or mobile banking. So it's already very, very active and penetrated. I think, in innovation, Société Générale is quite active. Innovation is one of our 4 values. We've created, this in SG Venture. We deployed about 150 million in startup venturing, and we came to the point where, but it was already the case. Some are, we killed some. Okay, some are, we continue to develop some. We did some large acquisition, such as Bank as a Service, which are, super strategic in our long-term vision. Or we created Forge, which operated during the COVID, the first worldwide transaction in digital euro with Banque de France. So, never stopped innovation. But more importantly, what COVID have done, I think, yes, definitely changed the mindset. What I was talking about, the people, the awakening to, okay, e-commerce is a reality, and we have to go further and drive us towards what was already there, the purpose-led transformation. What are we about? And how do we redefine ourselves in the world of tomorrow? And in February this year, Société Générale had redefined its North Star towards, okay, our mission is to co-build with our clients a better and more sustainable world by providing responsible and innovative solutions, financial solutions. And we had already done that in February, and really this piece of work was a very strong acceleration, because we moved from a digital transformation to a holistic, purpose-led transformation, which was already anchored in our next strategic plan. But I think that, it's not a strategy anymore. It's something that is coming, at the same time, bottom up and top down. It's an ambition from the top management, and it's also a willingness from our colleagues and an expectation from our clients. Not anymore. Now they are asking, and especially in Europe, there is a huge tropism around, a responsible finance, and it's one of the differentiators of the European strategy. But people are asking, okay, what is behind my financial products? How do I make sure and invest in green? Our clients are saying, like, I want to do green bonds. It's not anymore, and it's going to go way beyond the green bashing and the green washing. I think it's going to be something very, very strategic.
So, Arun, when we're looking at organizations, what seems to be the biggest challenge organizations have around innovation and digital transformation? I put these together because I think we've seen that they're tied, that organizations aren't innovation leaders, they aren't digital transformation leaders, and vice versa, that the ones that are both have a better customer experience rating, have a better revenue so it all works in tandem. But when you look at, maybe it's data, maybe it's analytics, maybe it's efficiency, maybe it's mindset, culture, when you look at organizations worldwide, what do you see as being the biggest challenge organizations face, even those that are doing it very well, in moving forward?
In what we have seen, Jim, is, as I mentioned when I was talking earlier, the constancy. I think digital can be a very confusing space. As I said, the flavor of the month can be very attractive, a lot of shiny objects in the space. When we see leaders who are able to see through that churn and look for the invariance. I look at virtualization, for example. It's an invariant. Everything is getting virtualized. It's not just our machines. It's hardware, software, it's even products inside a bank. So a bank that is able to really absorb and say, look, a product that I define needs to be virtualized. I need to be able to define it outside and have it delivered by my platform. So you take that one aspect, right? That's again differentiates the people who are very sophisticated about applying this technology and being still constant about that particular theme. So we see constant themes like cloud. Cloud has yielded a lot of benefits, and it doesn't mean that people immediately go to the public cloud. It's about a way of thinking. It's about 12 factors, right? It's about getting that deep into the system. The second is APIs. And see, the idea behind APIs, as we see, is integrating banking into other contexts. That's the real power of APIs, right? It's not just about offering a backend service for somebody to put together. It's about being strategic about what APIs and how to integrate into somebody else's context, what value proposition you want to bring. And the third that we see, I think you mentioned analytics. And this is an interesting one, Jim, because we have seen some changes in thinking in analytics. We've seen people invest a lot in big data analytics, data lakes, and so on and so forth. And I kind of joke and say it's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, right? You go down a rabbit hole, you may never come out. I think a smarter way to approach analytics is from the consumption. I think, as Claire mentioned, if you look at the outcome, the moment of truth at the point it hits a particular customer, and then integrate backwards towards the data lake, that strategy has been much more successful. So I think those three things are things we see all wrapped around customer centricity being the sole purpose of all of these investments. I think when we see that, we see, and that's where we see the gaps. We see people on different ends of the spectrum in each of these axes.
So Claire, when we look at innovation and digital transformation, both you and Olga are advanced organizations with regard to this. What KPIs do you have that you're responding to or reporting to or having to hit in order to say we're making progress?
It's always a good question, Jim. I mean, like for us, our KPIs are very developed. I mean, like they're reported. I define them, and then they've been integrated by the business. They are reporting directly into their when they review their business and their ROE generation. At the same time, they review their growth in digital. And these metrics are also reported to the general management and once a year to the board. And we also communicate them in our financial communication externally to investors, because we start seeing that some investors are starting to price part of the digital transformation. Back to the comment I was mentioning about Oliver Wyman, definitely this year is also a year to see the progress that have been done by banks which have invested for a decade in its digital transformation. But what we follow is threefold. We follow client metrics, so around digital adoption, digital servicing, digital sales, digital acquisition, which are a good indicator of the models and how it turn up in retail. They're slightly different if you go in wholesale, obviously, and depending on the size of the client. So, like in a SME, we'll measure a type of FX penetration or some of the digital proposition servicing usage. Because they are also less mature, and large corporates, especially in capital markets, have their own defined indicators as much as financing, where we can see early origination platform, but it's still very early, so it will not make a lot of sense. So a first part, which is very focused around clients, a second part in efficiency, which is harder to monitor because this entails that you have evolved your organization towards a combination of business, IT, and operations. So what generally we talk in the business as a customer journey, which behind that is, okay, you're not treating digital teams separately, but it's embedded and integrated, which really is able to give you, okay, I invest X, and at the end of the day, generate X in efficiency, which I can reinvest in this part or this other part. And last but not least, we started to measure more and more CSR KPIs. So as I mentioned, as much in usage of technology for good, that can materialize through inclusion KPIs, a level of green IT, diversity in our technology workforce. So that's also KPI we track and we report.
Olga, how about you?
Not very different from what Claire mentioned. I think we're very focused on customers. So one of our key KPIs is the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. So how much you help changing that NPS, it's really a very good KPI for us. And this, of course, it's with revenue generation, cost efficiency, as Claire mentioned, but we're really focused on how does the customer receive that. In case it's something internally for just an internal process, we are more focused on the part of the cost efficiency and how do you help improve the acceleration of things internally. But when you do something for your customers, we really focus on the NPS.
Arun, when you're working with organizations, and not every organization is going to have that top leadership support, okay? But you come in at all levels of an organization at Infosys Finacle and really look at different elements of how you build innovation and digital transformation. How do you work, or how does a person within a financial institution who may be at a mid-level management position and may not have complete, go through the walls, as Olga said, type mentality, how does a middle manager impact both the innovation model and the digital transformation model?
This is it's an interesting question because in many regards we face the same problem in our own organizations, right? I mean, my team has to show value in order to evangelize it, I would say, to my counterparts in my own organization. And so I think the first thing to do is really first have a lot of conviction. I think that's that makes a huge amount of difference. It actually requires one to persist through failure, and that requires true conviction. So I would say leaders who really understand that it's a matter of getting the right mindset, the people and the technology together, and then taking a space to actually show that difference in their own work could be a very powerful motivator across the organization. The second that I see is the metrics that Claire spoke about. I think having those metrics publicized and showing those early wins and gaining traction and following. See, I don't think there's a lot of resistance in the rest of the organization in terms of digital. Everybody feels they have to be digital. It's the method that people seem to differ on. So I think showing success in a particular method in a certain area is a powerful motivator to allied organizations to then join the force. And we have seen organizations actually change dramatically because of that. So this is the bottom up, but we've also seen, I just want to say, Jim, I think having top-down support is invaluable. You know, I give an example. In one of our customers, there was top-down support to go to an API backplane. It was resisted at first, but the amount of value it has unlocked is just phenomenal. But it required a little bit of a top-down push. And so, you know, one has, but by the way, top-down alone doesn't work. So I think that's why it's both. It's always and. I mentioned and before. So that's what we see as very, very successful. When people recognize that it's an and participate in that fully, they have a lot more control than they may imagine.
Olga, I'm going to go a different direction a little bit. When you look at 2021 and you look at what organizations need to do, where do you think, I know we can't just focus on one thing in that whole digital transformation sphere that I have, but if you were to say, you know, I had one or two things that they're just non-negotiable, we have got to get there in 2021 at your organization, but even in the industry, where would it be?
So that was for me, Jim.
No, that's for you, Olga. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think, Jim, and Arun, and you mentioned, we have a lot of data. We have big data lakes. We have a very good amount of data from our clients. So I think the point where we want to get in 2021 is really get into the personalization with our customers. So now getting and transforming the data into something that really the client wants, right? And know more our clients and send them really things that are specific for them. And I'm not only talking about offerings and products, right? Also in the channels where they have this touch with us, give them a personalized experience. I think that's our goal for 2021.
That's great. Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have a very strong conviction around the future is embedded finance, and that's the way it's going to go. And we already started to invest in banking as a service through acquisition, but it's much more larger in the organization and a movement which is in train. We also believe that the future is open, and that go back a little bit to your question about can you innovate when you are small or do you have the mean? I think it's what we call, you know, unbundling, rebundling. Is the reality is more and more we'll have to evolve towards an open architecture, open partnership, because the reality is the speed, the size of the investment ticket, you know, you cannot do things by yourself anymore. And honestly, it don't make a lot of sense from a customer proposition and the value chain of tomorrow. So, you know, for us, definitely we started this journey by opening our APIs, opening our architecture, you know, putting portal out there. But that's a movement, you know, doing strategic partnership, but that's a movement that is going to amplify. We do believe that the future remain in our activity of managing risk and protecting strategic assets of the customer. So we don't think we'll evolve towards, you know, a full business model of GAFA. We believe that there is opportunities more in data protection, be present in e-commerce chains, but having a different type of approach that will be relevant in the future. And for us, our last conviction is really around, you know, ESG and CSR, and that, you know, innovation and responsibility will meet, and that the ones that work out these two parts that will succeed and be the winners brand tomorrow. And I can tell you, because I'm doing it on the day-to-day with the head of CSR at SG, it's not so obvious. If you really want to do it in the detail, okay, very quickly, you know, we talked a little bit about financing, and in Société, you know, we are leader in financing renewable energy. We're also leader in energy, which have an incumbent challenge in some fossil and all financing, which are not easy to solve across the globe. globe, because not everyone is in mature country. I think, Arun, you may talk about that, but you don't have all the time the chance to be able to have aeolian energy or the financing to put an aeolian in some country. Some of them there is different type of challenge. But I think the ones that are going to win are that. More practically, yes, all my focus and my attention is going into how do we diversify some of the revenue model of Société Générale, and how do we leverage data and AI in this journey.
Okay, Arun, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's completely agree. Our job here is to support these what you're hearing from these leaders. I think that's what our focus is. And when you look at the next in the next year, I think I would repeat the three themes that I said, and I see this from different clients. Cloud. I think we're hearing this consistently from our clients. And again, I'd emphasize it's not about going to public cloud. It's even private cloud. It's about a way of working. It's about ensuring that there's extreme automation inside the organization. And of course, having the option then to choose the platform that they want to host the solution. The second that we're seeing that is very exciting is APIs. And I'm not talking about just exposing your current services. I think Olga mentioned this ambition of taking all the data and embedding it in a way that is consumable. And I think APIs, contextual APIs, offer a great opportunity to do that. That does require a rethink of how we're thinking about APIs today. It does require a platform that is capable of injecting context. But I think it's a different way of thinking about APIs than we have in the past. And the third is analytics, again, starting from the side of consumption and really looking at that. Again, a platform is necessary to create those personalized experiences and offer really a platform. It's not about each bank doing their own experience. I think Claire mentioned things are moving too fast for one organization to solve it by themselves, but really being the platform that brings the coherence of the experience. Because there's a risk with a lot of players in that the experience is very jagged to a customer. So I think having that balance of providing that platform, but really opening it for a lot of innovation from multiple sources. And we see the confluence of these three things, Jim. Very exciting, and each of our customers might choose a different axis, but all three we see very, very exciting in the next year.
Yeah, and from my perspective, after the research we're doing, and we're going through 6 reports right now that we're doing almost at the same time in a post-COVID world for the digital bank report. And I think the thing that we have found is a lot of what's going on right now is about simplification, invisibility. What I mean by invisibility is really embedding banking services in such a way that it becomes a part of the consumer's life. And most importantly, making it so that we get rid of silos and products. A clear reference a little bit about on the credit side, I think, not looking at loans, but looking at credit, not looking at savings accounts, but looking at investments and savings together. And the flow of funds almost invisibly within a person's relationship. And as Olga referenced, being able to expand maybe beyond financial services through API involvement, where you can provide services and actually generate revenue from third parties that will bring it together in an overall relationship. Platformification, we can put I might as well say pivot, because that's what we say at some point during every COVID meeting. But I think really it's changing the way banking's viewed and where our focus is. And we didn't talk about it, but when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about social justice, when you talk about helping investment in communities, these are all COVID-related things that aren't going to go away. In fact, they're going to be amped up. And I think as we look to 2021, this is where we're going to be going. Right now, I need to find out, Sylvia, do we have any questions from our audience?
We do have a lot, actually.
Yes, we have a lot, and well, we have to select because we have only 5 minutes left. And sorry for the pronunciation of the name. The question comes from Radesh Krishnan. And he asked, with recent developments like Googleplex, etc., how do you see big tech's role changing, evolving in the post-pandemic world? Are banks looking at them as partners or competitors at this stage? So maybe Arun, Jim can answer the first part of the question, and Olga and Claire, the vision from the banks, please.
I'll be real quick on this. I think Googleplex is going to really lift the perspective of what banking can be from an experience standpoint. Okay. Now, I'm also cautious because if I'm giving up my experience platform to Google, if I want to change my mind at some point and take that back, I'm not too sure if I can. So I call it the Trojan horse. It's just my perspective. But more than anything else, the way that different organizations are going to promote their involvement and engagement with Google Pay and Googleplex is going to be all around the engagement, the experience, and looking outside of the banking universe. You know, the ability to push and find out if you have an offer that you can do when you're about to make a payment is a powerful experience. Arun?
Yeah, I think the players like Google have changed this idea of experience for us. I think that's the greatest gift I think that we have gotten from that space. It does not mean, as you said, it just changes the bar. And I think people, our customers, clients who provide banking services are probably in the best position to contextualize that. So I think we take hope from the fact that resetting of the bar is actually being internalized by our clients in contextual ways, and whoever understands our context with the same kind of bar gets the opportunity to get our business. So we don't see this as an either or. We really see this as an opportunity for all of our clients to innovate at the next level.
Great. And from the side of the banks, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, I often say that, as you mentioned, fintech sets the bar for customer experience, and big tech have done it for a long time. Now, it's very interesting because SocGen operates in different geography. I mean, we are present in America, Asia, Africa, Russia, Europe. In Russia, they are not using Google, so surely they are not going to use this type of interface. In Europe, I am not sure. There is a movement around sovereignty which is rising at the moment. And will customers want to use Google fully as their bank? I'm not sure if you are going out there. There is regularly survey. They are not really in the mindset. It will be very different in America, and I think that's why also the partnership with Citi make a lot of sense in this way. So, starting with the customer, I think they have different expectations based on the region you are, and this will put the partnership into context and relevancy. Now, when we enter in the relationship between Google and Citi, what's always very interesting is to understand the economics and the business model, because as I mentioned, we do provide bank as a service through Trezor. I provide to more than 70 clients across 8 countries in Europe, account management, payment, KYC services, and all their infrastructure. So, for me, Google is just 71 clients. It is not, okay, we do offer this type of services already through Société Générale, through Trezor. So in this sense, it's not changing. It's one revenue model. But the question is, is the revenue model of Citi and Google, and we don't know that, going a little bit differently in terms of the revenue sharing, and what are they trying to get out of it? Because, if you go back to what Goldman Sachs had done with Apple, it was not very clear in providing the cards that the economics were fully in the favor of the bank. So it could be great as an acculturation or one project you do as a one-off, but in the long run, we all have to make one part of our revenue here.
Yeah. And Chloe?
And Olga, what's your last, and we will end this webinar. What's your thoughts?
I was going to answer just the part of if we see it as a competitor or as a partner. For us, the big techs are more partners rather than competitors, right? So I think they help us accelerate our innovation things. So they are very, very good partners for us.
Great. So that was it. I have to apologize. We still have some more questions, but time has gone very, very quickly because, oh, the alarm. Time is gone. Sorry. Really.
It has gone fast.
It was really interesting. I want to remember that you can download the copy of the whole study. And I think that some of the answers will be there, so read it carefully. And thank the audience, and especially our speakers, Olga, Ceja from Banorte, Innovation Manager and Digital Channels, Claire Calmejane from Société Générale, Chief Innovation Officer, Arun, thank you so much, from Infosys Finacle, and our favorite influencer, Jim. Thank you so much for this nice study. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with the audience, and remember to come back to our website to see next event. Thank you, stay safe, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.